Ooh. You didn't tell me you were a brainiac.
Welcome into Leather Brains. Your host, Slapdog here, and it is going to be a fun episode. I have the full crew here with me today, Scotty Del Rey and Alan Casanova Castro.
Yep.
Gentlemen, let's get into another episode of Leather Brains here. So, March Gladness is over. We genuinely appreciate everybody who has participated, and we'll have this back again next March. We might even do some jersey giveaways throughout the summer just to spice things up and try and give some free signed jerseys out to the Brainiac community. But let's go back to the podcast. We are here today to discuss NFL news, and then we are introducing a new segment called Leather Burns, where we're going to be discussing, basically like a roast in life related to maybe sports or maybe otherwise. But we've each brought in a topic here today that we'd like to discuss, so we will conclude the episode with that. We're getting silly today, ladies and gentlemen. So without further ado, let's just jump into the news. And I mentioned we're getting silly, so let's start with Aaron Rodgers, guys. He's had a throwing session with DK Metcalf. Feels as if Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers is getting more and more serious. You look at the landscape of quarterback vacancies, and this is really one of the prime ones right now. So in your guys' mind, is Aaron Rodgers a Pittsburgh Steeler?
Based on this comment, like in some of the news that have come that's coming out, I think so. We always know because he's old. He wants to avoid training camp at all costs. His old ass is not trying to practice. So I think that's why he's just kind of doing some throwing sessions with DK, and you're probably going to see this pick up more and more. And then he'll sign, and because they don't care. It probably affords them some opportunity and flexibility if he doesn't sign yet. I'm sure there's some mathematics that go beyond me in this, but I just want him to fucking retire. I'm so tired of talking about him, and then he shows up and either tears his Achilles or plays like shit. So I'm just largely over talking about him in general.
Well, we do it every offseason. I don't know if you do that.
It's kind of a tradition around here. I want to know why George Pickens wasn't invited to this throw around. Are we seeing the drama show up already?
Favoritism?
The pot already.
Is Pickens like, what the fuck? This is happening already? Maybe.
Like, I didn't get the invite here. It's got to be Aaron Rodgers. I mean, there's no other quarterbacks that are like, there's no other quarterbacks. Maybe like Joe Flacco, maybe, but like the reason they're dragging their feet, and this is a dart throw, are they dragging their feet because Mike Tomlin they're working through contract negotiations of like cutting the bullshit, and Rodgers is like, my ayahuasca trip is planned for this day, I am going. And so like they're working the nuances of just all the Rodgers bullshit, and they're like negotiating on that kind of stuff.
They have to sit down for like 6 hours to discuss his calendar because he's got to go. Yeah, I don't know if you guys heard, but they discovered like a whole power factory under the pyramid, so he's got to go see that. Like he needs to just have time to go
steel beams or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know if any of that's real, but he's got to go do that for sure. He's got to do ayahuasca. He's got like 7 or 8 like halfway across the globe plane trips to plan into preseason.
No, he does. And I was thinking about this on a more serious note. Is there any possibility that the Steelers trade up and get a quarterback, or do they just wait to who falls to them? Maybe Shedeur falls that far and they're interested. Like, no, you guys are.
I just don't think this is the draft to do it. I don't think there's anything there that's like sexy enough to warrant it. Because like you're gonna want some immediate returns for this quarterback.
Yeah.
The last thing you want is another Kenny Pickett where you're having to figure that out on the fly, and his hands are too small, and can he do it? And like you're trying to sift through what he can and can't do. If I was a GM in this draft, I'm not trading up for any quarterback. Like there's a lot of intriguing prospects in this draft. But quarterback is definitely not one of them. Even all the attention that Shedeur Sanders gets in general, I don't see it as like being this like game-changing quarterback. Is he solid? Sure. But there's nobody. I don't think there's anybody worth giving up picks or giving up assets.
Do you think if Shedeur's there at the 20, so the Steelers have the 21st overall pick in this draft, do you think they take him at 21 if he's there?
If by some miracle he's still there, if I'm the Steelers GM, I try to take advantage of somebody else desperate for a quarterback and gouge them for even more to get more for my team if they want to come up and take Shedeur. I wouldn't take it. I just don't think it's worth it. I don't think any of these quarterbacks are worth it.
I'm in the exact same boat. Well, I think Cam Ward is the one I'd be the most excited to take. But even that, like, just looking at recent draft class, I mean, even just this last draft class, I mean, there's so much talent there that you'd love to have. Right now, I think the Steelers are in this situation where they either, because we know Mike Tomlin's not going to be there forever. There's already discussions about how long he's going to stick around. The organization is not blind to that. So they're thinking we got to make moves right now. So their choices are someone like Aaron Rodgers, who conceivably has a lot of upside, or trading up and drafting a rookie quarterback. And given the talent that's in this draft, there's, there are quarterbacks that very well may find a lot of success, but there's just no one that jumps off the page at you as someone who's like, that's a surefire thing. That's a Joe Burrow. That's a Patrick Mahomes. Like, there's nobody like that in this draft. So I think Aaron Rodgers is sort of the plan B that they have to do. Otherwise, they're looking at another, 8-win, 9-win season, and Mike Tomlin's probably going to be gone.
How awesome would it have been if Jameis Winston was there, though?
Yeah.
It would have been so awesome.
I think anybody's lucky to have Jameis Winston. I was happy the Giants put a funny graphic out, or just a funny statement about what did it today when he signed? It was something like the horse is ready for battle or something like that. And I was just dying. I was like, that's so good. Like, lean into it. You almost have to lean into it.
Mm-hmm.
You brought up Cam Ward. He gives me very much Richardson vibes from the Colts. Like, big, athletic, can do it, but can he do it in the NFL, which is a totally different animal. But he gives me that kind of vibe. Like, there's tools and he's got a cannon, but how does that end up translating? We don't know, because we've seen plenty of quarterbacks come in with cannons that just doesn't work. And I just don't. I obviously I'm not an expert. I'm not Mel Kiper. I'm not these guys on ESPN. But if I was playing GM right now, I would strongly look elsewhere for quarterbacks to like either bridge the gap in some way, shape, or form, and then just take the best available player. Because this draft class is loaded. It's just not loaded with quarterbacks.
Yeah, and the Titans, they have the first overall pick, and head coach Brian Callahan has indicated that they're kind of narrowing down who they're going to take there. And Cam Ward's on that list. Shedeur Sanders is a potential. Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. So Callahan emphasized that these players represent like the upper echelon of elite talent, and then the organization aims to finalize its decision by early April. It's got to be a quarterback, though, right? I mean, you look at the Titans situation, and it's like, they're kind of in a. I mean, the Titans are obviously worse than the Steelers, but like that's a glaring hole that they need to figure out. So do you take Cam Ward here, or do you try and, no team tanks to tank, but do you take a Travis Hunter or an Abdul Carter and just say, hey, we're good on the quarterback, we'll wait till next year? Like, in your mind, what do you see the Titans doing here?
It's just such a, with all that we've already said about this draft class, like there's just no quarterback that I'm like, this is a guy who can help us turn our organization around. So it's really a tough spot for a lot of these teams who need a quarterback. Like it really is. I don't really know. I think the fact that they were able to grab Will Levis in the second round, last year, obviously he famously dropped down further than people kind of expected. That gives them a little bit more freedom to experiment and decide if they want to move on from him already. Or not. So it wouldn't surprise me. Of course, taking a quarterback makes a lot of sense, but it also wouldn't surprise me if they're like, I don't see any of these guys turning our franchise around. Let's start with the building blocks and we'll approach this conversation again next year.
Yeah, I think you almost conventional wisdom. I think the way NFL teams traditionally operate, it's let's go get a quarterback and let's hope it works, because that is obviously the most important position on the field. That makes or breaks you. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. Tom Brady going in the 7th round, a bunch of picks panning or not panning out,
or Sam Darnold coming in and carrying your team to a playoff berth,
and then Sam Darnolding all over himself. I think so I get the logic, because if it works, it's the biggest upside, because if you can hit on a quarterback, you're good, and you're good for years and years and years, and then you can make decisions on that rookie contract. A lot of sites, and I know this bears out, and I know the other show talks about this a little bit more in depth, but like there are probably like 7 or 8 prospects that are ranked ahead of the quarterbacks. And you have to convince yourself that I'm not going to take one of these defensive linemen, or I'm not going to take Travis Hunter to be on my team to potentially make an impact. Like, and I I don't see it. And especially for somebody like the Titans, where you really don't have anything else, like who are they going to throw to? Who are they going to hand the ball off
Ridley,
to?
of course.
So it's almost like you might as well just beef up. Like if I'm them, if I had a choice at the quarterback or at the draft, like I'm 100% taking Carter. Like I would just take a D lineman, say good to go. He can pressure the quarterback. Like that'll keep us in games more than figuring out if this quarterback can actually read a defense, in my mind. But I obviously don't get
to counter this argument a little bit. You could argue that every quarterback's a dart throw. Are they not? Like, and that's where it gets really interesting is, you look at, you mentioned Anthony Richardson, right? He's kind of on that trajectory where it's like, this is kind of a make or break year for him as far as his outlook for his career. And he's been injured. He hadn't figured it out last year. And then you look at, on the opposition, you have Jaden Daniels, who in the span of 1 year has completely changed the outlook of the Commanders organization because they did hit on their quarterback and they found somebody that's really great. And so you have a dichotomy of both of these, either side of the coin here. Could you not argue that you still take that dart throw with a quarterback and you hope and you plan to try and coach them up in the NFL and see what you can get? Because and I use the Commanders as an example here. Jaden Daniels, right? Like, what are the Commanders doing this offseason that is so like stellar? They're going chips all in, right? Like they've traded for Deebo Samuel. They're improving in other areas because they know, okay, our window is here and we need to try and push the agenda. That's in 1 year, right? And if they didn't draft Jaden Daniels, we're sitting here looking at the Commanders as a 4-12 team or whatever, and it's like, okay, yep, they're still ass, right? So that one player changed that franchise in a very positive way. Could you not argue that it's still worth the dart throw to even hope that you could get some usability out of a quarterback with that first overall pick?
Yeah, to me, this draft class feels much like the one in 2022 where you had where that one had Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis. I think you can. It's just, I think this class is, you don't have a Joe Burrow. You don't have like a Jared Goff. You don't have these guys coming in. You're like, wow, that looks like a quarterback that could be ready-made for a team. You have projects. Mm-hmm. Even Shedeur Sanders, I think, is a project. They both are projects more than they are like, okay, these are almost plug and play guys where I feel like they can be a difference maker now. They probably will still take it because you're right. The upside on them, the lottery ticket portion of it is very high because if you hit on it, it's great. And if you can do it, amazing. Like the Commanders, like feels great when you do it. I just don't see it out of either of these two guys. And I think the upside of the other positions outweighs it. And that's just me. I think some teams sitting at like 3 or 4 or 5, one of those teams is just going to get a steal, is going to get the best player in the draft without a doubt.
And I don't know, the two players, Slapdog, that you mentioned, sort of the dichotomy is Jaden Daniels and Anthony Richardson. And to a certain degree, yes, it's gambling. To a certain degree, you're just trying to make an educated guess. But even though we have the benefit of hindsight now, there's not a single person who's going to look at Anthony Richardson versus Jaden Daniels and say that those two prospects were on the same level. Everybody knew Anthony Richardson with his injury history and his time spent off the field, that he was a project. Jaden Daniels was a guy who people felt comfortable taking a dart throw on. And you recognize that even before the draft happened. So those sort of analytics do play in, and I think that everybody in this draft is closer to an Anthony Richardson than they are to a Jaden Daniels. That's the vibe I'm getting from just the talent coming out of it.
Sure. And we're talking about quarterbacks. Let's mention Brock Purdy. Let's throw him in this conversation. So Brock Purdy, he had an interview and he was being asked a couple different questions regarding last season. Purdy attributed the team's disappointing 2024 season to, quote, fatigue from consecutive deep playoff runs in previous years. Purdy noted that the extended seasons left players physically exhausted, contributing to the team's downturn. Look, the 49ers were just hurt like that. There's no it's not, hey, we're tired. It's not Anthony Richardson running off the field because he can't breathe because he needs to catch his breath. Like, these players were hurt. But I also say the 49ers are actively negotiating a contract with Purdy in the hopes to get a deal done by the start of the 2025 season, which
I would just like to throw something out real quick.
Yeah.
I would like to hire Brock Purdy to be our podcast PR guy, because he basically went out there and got away with humble bragging. He's like, yeah, when you're as good as we are and you've had as much success as we have over the last few years, it's inevitably, going to wear and tear on your body from playing all these playoff games. I mean, it's crazy. But
it's like Anchorman. He's like, I don't know if you heard me. I was up to 1,000. When he's doing curls, like, I don't know if you noticed, I was busy playing playoff games. There's no way he can be serious just because of all the other teams that have made deep playoff runs over the past few years and maybe didn't suffer the same fate. Which,
to be fair, like, yeah, I look, we're not NFL players, and I'm sure all those extra games do take a little bit of extra toll on you. But also say, like, don't use that as an excuse as far as
you're
why
you're an athlete. You're literally getting paid to be an athlete and take care of your body. Like, that's all you should be doing. And so to say, like, we're tired, then or we're played into a factor of us getting hurt. I get it.
I will say this.
Yes, he's right, though, because we have seen it because these seasons are so long and they want to add yet another game to the NFL schedule.
Yeah.
Some of these teams, like, humble brag, like the Chiefs, who have, they basically, I think Mahomes, as of last year, had played like basically an extra NFL season just on playoff games alone at the end of last year, which is insane. Like, and you think about the toll that takes on somebody's body. I agree with him. It just seems like a odd take because everybody else is looking around like, yeah, no shit. Like, we're all getting beat up.
All the good teams do. But I do think it is wise of the 49ers to get a deal done now, because inevitably, while we all know the cap is not real, it is going to continue to go up, and he's going to demand a higher price come time to negotiate that contract. So we've said it before on the show, and I'll say it again. Sign your guy. When you know you have your guy, just get it on, ink it, get it done, because the price only goes up, right? And unless Purdy has a terrible season, which is going to be interesting because, you have some Ayuk drama about him potentially being on the trade block, and obviously they lost Debo. So this their offensive line is not getting any younger or better. So there's certainly some things going on there. But overall, like, I think we're all under the impression that Brock Purdy is going to be the 49ers quarterback for seasons to come. So just get the deal done.
Just
like save yourself some money now.
They're going to catch heat because it's probably people are going to say it's an overpay. Regardless of whatever they get done, the initial reaction is it's going to be an overpay. And then literally as somebody else signs a new contract or next year ticks around, they're going to be like, oh, that was a good deal because now look how much everything costs. So you're going to take some heat in the moment. That's not what it is. Just solidify your guy. The market is what the market is. Just move on.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, too, I'm so sick of all these idiots talking about how Brock Purdy is mid. Like, maybe he is, but there is no evidence that has played out on the field that would lead us to believe that. He, as long as his team has not been like run over by a steamroller like they were last year, he has been playing like a top tier quarterback, and he should be paid like it. And there's no real argument now over the course of his young career that he shouldn't be in that conversation. Like, all these people are, they're just like stuck on this idea that he's just a baby-faced little boy and he can't play the game at a high level. It's like, I don't know if you've been watching football for the last 3 seasons, but this guy has been tearing it up. Like, he definitely should get paid.
Yeah, we talk about fit all the time, and this is certainly a fit thing for the 49ers where he fits what they want to do. I think it fits what Shanahan wants to do. I think it allows them ways to design the defense. Like, would they prefer to have maybe Josh Allen back there? Like, if you gave him the option, like, sure, anybody would take that level of quarterback. But I think for what they're trying to get done and what his skill set allows them to do, I think it's a great fit for both of them for sure. I don't know if we lost Slaps.
Oh, I just realized he's frozen.
We might have just lost Slaps, but I think to round that out, I think it makes sense for the 49ers to do that. I think they have a lot of other fish to fry, and I don't think they want to introduce the quarterback position being another fish that they want to fry.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about John Harbaugh then, because homeboy just got paid a 3-year extension, securing his position through the 2028 season. He's been with the Ravens since 2008. They got that one Super Bowl in the bag, but like, I don't know. It's obviously they're not going to make a big change right now. They've had so much success over the course of his tenure.
Now, the biggest report now, I feel like, coming up from the Ravens' point of view is that it looks like Lamar Jackson's going to reset the market on the highest paid player. So just like we said with Purdy, it's just going to keep getting reset. Just pay him and move on, because it's just going to keep happening. Salary cap's going up. The revenue's going up. Everything goes up. Prices go up. Market goes up. And so I think that'll be the next thing for Lamar Jackson. I think it'll be interesting, though, because they the year before that, where they hosted the AFC title game, I think that was like their shot to go and do it. And they added Derrick Henry, and then they lost in Buffalo. And I think it's just, for whatever the reason is, it feels like the Ravens and Lamar Jackson on the biggest stage seem to take a step back. And I don't know why that is necessarily. I don't know if it's coaching, if it's Lamar Jackson. I don't know what it is. They just look like teams have their number when they get onto the biggest stage. And I think for John Harbaugh moving forward, it's great. He's going to be there through 2028. I think he's obviously one of the best coaches in the NFL. And having the one Super Bowl win helps him, but he should have definitely played in more. And having, 2 times, should have been 3 times, some say, MVP and Lamar Jackson, who's going to reset the market. You got to figure that one out. You got to figure out how to win those big games and prove to the city and the organization that like all this money is worth it in the end. Because right now it feels like if you're just looking at fantasy football, amazing. My team's amazing, but obviously that's not how it works in the real world. It's more of success on the field.
Lamar is kind of teetering on this interesting narrative because obviously there are already whispers in sort of NFL spaces that, he falls apart in the big moments. He's not able to get over that hurdle. But when you look at his career as a whole, he just recently got like notable weapons at wide receiver. He just recently got an opportunity to actually showcase his ability as a thrower. And he's been sort of a one-dimensional quarterback up until the last few years, and we've sort of seen that move in the right direction, maybe with a little bit of a step back last year compared to 2 years ago. But it's interesting because if he makes it to a Super Bowl in the next year or two, then the conversation is going to be, well, look at the early years in his career. He didn't have a lot of weapons. He was still dicing everybody up to the best that he could, and now he made it. If he doesn't make it to a Super Bowl, the narrative is just going to be he could never get it done in the big moments, and he was never clutch enough to make it happen.
I think it's so funny. We hold all of these players, and when I say we, I mean like either it's media or fans or anybody hopping on Reddit to talk shit. Like we hold all these players to like these high levels, and we should, right? Like that's how we look at each other. But like literally, 2 quarterbacks get to play in the Super Bowl every year, just 2. And one has to come from one conference and one has to come from the other conference. And I think Lamar Jackson, I think if they played in the NFC, I think he would have already been to a few of them. I think the AFC has just been a gauntlet for so long with the talent and quarterbacks that they have. And I think that's just unfortunate timing in place for him. But hopefully they can figure that one out, because I think he definitely deserves those accolades when the flowers, as they say, of getting to the Super Bowl. But definitely want to sign him and keep him and Harbaugh together for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I don't think there's any chance that anybody in that organization thinks otherwise. I think their plan for the long term is Lamar Jackson.
They did for a second, though, didn't they? A few years back, where they were like, "Anybody want him?
Like
anybody looking for a quarterback? We will take all of your."
Then he won 2 consecutive MVPs, and I got to put that to rest.
To everybody. Speaking of the NFC, reports coming out of the NFL is that there is growing support to ban the Tush Push or the brotherly shove out of Philadelphia and the Eagles. This place certainly is a lot of controversy. I think you see it a lot. You see people complaining. You see kind of players talking about it. It looks weird, I think, if you're an outsider watching football. If you don't understand how football works, you're like, wait, that looks just like rugby. I thought this was a different sport. But I think it's really helped the Eagles. Obviously, I think other teams have tried to replicate it, but it's definitely an Eagles like trump card. It's basically like a play, like when they run it, it's over. It doesn't matter. It's over. They have an amazing offensive line. Jalen Hurts can literally squat a bus. So I guess, what are your thoughts on this? Like, what's your stance on the Tush Push? Do you think this is something the NFL should ban? Do you think it's play on? Do you think it's all fair? Like, what do you think as a fan of the NFL should happen with the Tush Push?
All right, I come at this from 2 schools of thought. The first one is the irrational football fan in me, that's the part of my personality that is most forefront. So it's the one that everybody sees for the most part. And the irrational football fan in me says, if they can do it and they can find success and nobody can stop them, why would you ban it? Like they clearly do it at a level higher than everybody else. So it's like, it feels like people are just kind of pussing out and they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to deal with this. Let's just ban it. That's what it feels like. The analytics side of me says, okay, if you're going to advocate for banning this play, you have to have good reasons. And we really hear 2 reasons. Number one, the reason is it's not a football play. I think you can throw that reason right out the fucking window, because the argument there is that it's not exciting for fans. They're just watching this big clump of idiots run into each other for a second, and it's like nobody wants to see that. But fans have been so excited about the tush push. It has been all over media for years now, and I think it's, there is something exceptional about when you see a 4th and 1 and Philadelphia's like, no problem, we got this. And it does add an extra layer of excitement. So I think it is a football play. I think it makes football fans excited to see it. And then the other argument that you get is injury concern. Okay, you have all these huge guys that are piling up on top of each other. I just don't see that argument either, because are you going to tell me that that's more dangerous than, stepping up in the hole and facing one-on-one against Derrick Henry? No. Like, there's one of those plays I would rather do than the other one. And so I just think there's not really a good argument to get rid of it. I think it's exciting. I think it's fun for fans. I don't think it's particularly dangerous. And ultimately, if the Eagles can do it better than everybody else, they have a right to run the play.
I agree. I think if you saw a bunch of teams doing it and it was basically changing the way football was played and it wasn't exciting and people were tuning in. It's not like you turn on Sunday Ticket and you see all the teams doing the tush push up and down the field. It's literally like a specific use case for a specific team that can do it better than anybody else. And I think people are just like annoyed with it. And very ironic, it came from the Packers, and it looks like it's getting support from even like Sean McDermott, where they're citing those injuries. I agree with you. I think it's a ton of BS. I think the only argument that I've seen that really advocates for this or would push for the ban is that the defense cannot do the same thing. So on defense, you cannot take a guy and shove him through the offensive line like the offense can do to the defense. And I don't know what to do with that. I don't think that means you should ban the tush push, maybe amend that defensive play, like in certain situations. I don't know how you rectify that from like a rules standpoint, or how that impacts like things like a field goal. I don't know. But I do know that's the only like advocating like opposition to it, to say to ban it, is the fact that you can't do that on the defensive side. And I think this just leads to the complexity that is the NFL rule book. Like, holy shit, like, what are we doing to ourselves? Like, we have this many rules, but that's the only thing I've seen that like, not that I agree with that, but that's the only thing I've looked at and been like, that does seem a little imbalanced, where the defense can't do it back to the offense, which I don't think they should do it either. But I think it's largely a nothing sandwich. I akin this to the Dolphins back in the day when they busted out the Wildcat and they had like running backs taking the snaps, and it worked for them. It worked for a spell and it went away. And I think the tush push eventually will go away. I think it works for this. Like I said, the Eagles offensive line is unreal. Now at center, they got, Cam Jurgens, shout out Nebraska, pushing that forward the center. And then you have Jalen Hurts. Like, Jalen Hurts is the strongest quarterback in the NFL. I think we can say that pretty confidently. And I don't know if, I'm sure there's others that come close, but like pound for pound, he is the strongest quarterback in the NFL. Has his hat in the ring for sexiest quarterback in the NFL, and it's just a play that works for them. And I think it's not. I honestly would be upset if they banned the tush push, because I feel like it is the dumbest thing ever. I don't know why. I don't know why coaches are agreeing, but it apparently is picking up steam, and I don't know if that's like PR to try to get it to pick up steam, or be like, oh, I guess everybody likes it, I might as well vote for it. So I don't know. We'll see how this plays out, but it's definitely something to consider or pay attention to as we move forward. One question I had on this topic. Tush push. What are other rules or plays in the NFL that feels like they should be illegal and maybe should be banned or not? And I'll kick off this conversation really quickly, because I had a thought here. But plays in the NFL that don't make any sense and feel like should be illegal. To me, you're getting late in the game or late in a half, offense is moving, they need to kill the clock. What do? They spike the ball. And everybody's okay with it. Quarterback hikes it, just throws it right at his feet, bounces off the ground. Everybody's like, all right, cool, incomplete pass, clock stop. That is literally, letter of the law, intentional grounding. It does not go past the line of scrimmage. You are not outside the tackle box. You are literally throwing it to 0 people at all. Nobody, not even an eligible receiver in the area. But it's like, oh, that's fine. Like, it stops the clock. That's one for me where I've like, if you're going to rectify this rule book and make it make sense to me, like, just get rid of that. I think that would make it even far more interesting. It puts a lot of pressure on the offense to like get up and go. But just as we were talking and thinking through rules, that was one for me. I didn't know if you had any, Scotty.
Yeah, that's I think far and away the best one, because it's such a clear contradiction. Like, it's just like, you can't do this thing except for in this particular situation, then it's just fine.
When you really need to.
You really
want to do it. Otherwise, don't do it.
Yeah. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. One of the rules that just doesn't kind of align with the NFL being a sport that, the vast majority of fans watch on TV, and it's supposed to be this like spectator sport viewed from a distance, so it's supposed to be exciting, is icing the kicker. You have these moments where it's like, this is the most intense part of the game where like this kick could make or break the game. It's going to change everything. They all come out, they line up, and then it's like, nope, timeout. Now you got to go to a commercial and watch, a Burger King sandwich being made or something. It's like, I understand why it's there. I understand why coaches do it, but it does not seem to flow with like the NFL as a spectator sport. They're like, yeah, we're going to bring you right up to the point of the most exciting. And then we're like, nope, you got to wait. You got to wait.
Yeah, having some friends that don't live in this country, them talking about American football in general, there's this start stop commercial, start stop commercial, wait, timeout, commercial, false start. It's like it does feel a little clunky at times if you just look at it from an outsider point of view. I agree with that one. I think that one makes a ton of sense. That or like where you just watched a goddamn 10-minute commercial about God knows what, and they come back and they do the kickoff and then they go take another commercial. I'm like, what even was that? Like, what is that? What are we even doing? Now with the changes to the kickoff, nothing even really freaking happens anyway. So you might as well just like put the ball at the 25, let them line up and just start going again. Like that part makes zero sense to me anymore, which I feel like, I don't know. We should earmark that the kickoff conversation for another go.
Yeah. If the NFL really wants to make money, like red zone, obviously there was kind of a big headline that they fucked it up this year or this last season where they inserted a commercial or two in the middle of commercial free football. But commercial free football, like people watch red zone, obviously the fantasy value is there. You get to watch all the teams at the same time. But if they just came out with like, hey, pick 3 teams, pay us, $40 a month or whatever, and we are going to show you all of these games without any commercials. And obviously you can't do that because they take real breaks in real life for the commercials. But if you could do something like that to where it's like, I think fans would pay extra to just not be bombarded. Like a football game could last an hour and 10 minutes. We don't have to sit there for 3 hours because 50% of it is commercials.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on here and talk about the Patriots. Stefon Diggs made the signing. It was rumored for a while. It was finally made official that he signed a 3-year, $69 million contract with the Patriots. Obviously, he's recovering from his ACL injury. Drake May, everybody kind of had good thoughts about Drake May, and then he just didn't have a ton of weapons, but the optimism's there. The question is, to what degree is Stefon Diggs going to impact this team? Are they going to find offensive success? Are you excited for Drake May, or is this nothing?
Drake May is interesting. I think he's very obviously going to benefit from having a veteran presence at the wide receiver spot. I just don't know if Diggs is ready to. I just don't know how his body's going to respond. Is he going to be willing to go through the minutia and the ups and downs of like dealing with a very young quarterback? Yes, he's in his second year, but for all intents and purposes, it's like an extension of his rookie year. It's not like he got a ton of playing time to where you're like, all right, cool, he's figured this out for 17, 18 games. Like he's still going to be in the thick of it as well. And interesting tweet that we're probably not going to talk about in this one, but I would love to bring up at some point is they talked about, there's a tweet that came out that was talking about NFL's percentage of their passing yards that came in garbage time. Basically, they were so far ahead it didn't matter, or the game was over and they were going to lose and it didn't matter. And it was like Drake May had like 21% of his passing yards basically came in garbage time, basically time that was irrelevant for the teams. And I think that's going to be the evolution of this Patriots offense is can they utilize Drake May in a winning situation and keep the lead? And I would like to think a veteran wide receiver do that. I just don't know if it's Diggs. Like he's older coming off that ACL. I don't see it, but I mean, good for him. And I mean, hopefully it pays out, but I wouldn't be betting on it.
I'm back, gentlemen.
Yeah. Welcome.
I do apologize. I'm facing some storms.
You have to poop?
I almost did. A lightning shook the house so bad that I may have pooped a little. But it also killed my internet. And but I'm back. So I apologize for that delay. I'm glad we're talking about Stefon Diggs, though, because a 3-year, $69 million contract, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for a 31-year-old wide receiver who's coming off of an ACL injury. So I don't hate this signing, though. And I that's not to say I would have hoped that maybe Brandon Ayuk could have ended up with the Patriots, or they could have got somebody else who's maybe a little bit younger. But I don't hate this. The biggest question mark that we're all sitting here very impatiently waiting for is, what is Diggs going to look like post ACL surgery at 31 years old, right? And if he comes back and still even look, he's getting older, right? And we know that as these wide receivers or any NFL player gets older, they start to decline. So for 3 years, I'm assuming he'll be there for the next 2 years, and then maybe they'll cut him on his third year. Who knows what'll happen? But I like this move for Drake May. And you'd mentioned, Alan, that tweet about the NFL saying like a lot of May's, percentage of throws were in garbage time, but that's what the Patriots were last year. We're hot garbage. And so like, yeah, they were going to be throwing it a lot no matter what. I think this is a good move for the Patriots, even if Diggs is not at the level that we had seen him compete in prior to the ACL injury. They need some veteran leadership, especially in that wide receiver room. Like, you look at the wide receivers that the Patriots have, and it's not a lot, right? And so even if Diggs isn't, back up to par of what we have seen Stephon Diggs play at, I think even just that veteran leadership from a wide receiver perspective is something that is going to largely benefit the Patriots in their wide receiver room. And let's not forget too, Gerard Mayo's no longer in the picture. And I really do like the signing of his name is escaping me at the moment. Vrabel. I like that move a lot. I think Vrabel there as a head coach is going to create a lot stability. He's just, this is not his first go around on a head coaching job. And he found a lot of success with the Titans. So I like this move in large for the Patriots, and also for Drake May. I think it will give him a little bit more to, if Diggs has a semblance of what he used to be. I think this is going to be really big for Drake May, because this Patriots offense, I think Drake May is a good quarterback. I think he could be a good quarterback. We didn't really get to see a lot last year, and I in large don't think that was entirely his fault, because A, he's a rookie, B, he had a first-time head coach, C, he didn't have any wide receivers, and so I think this at the very least helps bolster that argument just a little bit.
I'm a little nervous about it, to be honest with you. I think obviously if Stephon Diggs comes back and looks like he did when he was running around with Josh Allen, then great. But he's nothing but question marks right now. We don't know physically what he's going to look like. We don't know. Remember, the last time Stephon Diggs was in headlines, it was because he was creating all this drama with the Bills locker room. We didn't see a lot of that because he didn't play a ton with the Texans. And one thing that really stands out to me is, yes, CJ Stroud is young, but there was no doubt that he was commanding the offense, that he kind of had that leadership aura about him. There's also no doubt, of course, that Josh Allen was in the same boat. Has Drake May taken that step yet? And if not, what's the relationship going to be like between someone like Stephon Diggs, who everyone's kind of widely regarded as a diva wide receiver, and a young quarterback that's still trying to get his foot in the door? I think having Mike Vrabel in that equation makes me a little bit less scared, but I am nervous about just the overall sort of, how this is all going to merge together. And it's just nothing but question marks, which makes me think maybe spending, $70 million, 3-year deals on a 31-year-old wide receiver, like maybe there were better options than doing that.
Yeah, I think they had to get something. I feel like we say this year after year. There's a lot of good wide receivers in this class as well. I think that's what the Patriots would want to do, is maybe give them a few extra young weapons that they can work together and grow, because that's what you want. Like, you want a young team that can grow together and and develop. You don't have to worry about aging and things like that. Like, that's very obviously the way you want to go. And I think the Patriots are going to do that. I think it was just more like a little insurance, maybe, that they do have somebody. Not that they're obviously not making a Super Bowl run. I don't know if that's a spoiler alert for anybody listening or that may be holding out hope for the Patriots. Like, that's very, they're not aiming for the Super Bowl. I think they're aiming for developing this quarterback. And I think Stephon Diggs could give them that. And I think that's probably all they're signing him for. I don't think they're coming in and be like, hey, listen, you're gonna catch you for 1,000 yards and you're gonna catch all these touchdowns. And I think it's mainly like, can you get in here, be effective, help our young quarterback? We'll pay you this. I think he understands what this is as well, and this very well could be one of the last hurrahs of Stephon Diggs, which is kind of wild to say, because I feel like was such an impactful player for quite some time, and then just you kind of see that light fizzling out on him in his career, which is a little sad. But I think for the Patriots, I think this makes sense, and then I think you just see him reload in the draft.
Well, and the other thing too, like I kind of touched on, if Gerard Mayo was the head coach, I think I'd be less interested in this. But given the history that we know of Stephon Diggs and how much he drives culture on a team and whatnot, I like the fact that Vrabel's there, because Vrabel is gonna almost kind of put him in his place a little bit more than maybe a Gerard Mayo would have. And I don't know that in finality, but I get the the assumption or the feeling that Vrabel's not going to tolerate that nearly as much as somebody who's new as a head coach and still trying to figure it out. And then you get this diva big name wide receiver who still thinks he's, top dog, and maybe he doesn't. I hope he comes to that realization that, hey, I'm not who I used to be, and that's not to say I still can't have a lot to offer to a team, but hopefully that curves out a little bit.
How many times do you think Vrabel's accidentally called May Tannehill? Do you think that slipped a handful of times, or
God, I hope
he just
not.
gets all the white guys mixed up?
Yeah.
Tannehill? Oh, damn it, May.
Well,
if anything for May, I think the way that Vrabel did use Tannehill is going to probably be a lot of upside because Tannehill very famously was a wide receiver and converted to quarterback and came to the NFL, and I think under Vrabel really shined. And I think the way Vrabel constructs his team and wants to play football could help a young quarterback for sure. So I think right now it'll be largely beneficial for him, and then we'll see, obviously, long term.
Yeah.
TBD.
Florida defensive tackle.
Did we lose him?
Seems like we might have lost him.
Florida defensive tackle. He was saying Florida defensive tackle Desmond Watson could become the heaviest draft pick in NFL history, weighing in at, and Scotty, brace yourself.
Okay.
I think chairs around America also brace themselves. He weighs 464 pounds. God, that is a mammoth of a man.
How tall is he? Do you know?
I don't even know. Let's pull this up. Let's see.
I don't understand how it's physically possible for a human being on like a just a normal biological frame.
He's listed at 6'6". He is 6'6", and he weighs 464 pounds. I think the most surprising thing is he ran under a 6-second 40. Like that's still cruising. Like,
yeah,
honestly, shout out to, Chick-fil-A or whoever's getting this man right. But like just the sheer like physics behind him moving as quick as he can with 464 pounds behind him is just amazing. Honestly, if I'm a team in the NFC East and I'm looking at who I'm going to draft, and I would keep my eyes on if the Tush Push actually gets banned or not. Because if it doesn't get banned, I'm probably just going to draft this guy and be like, hey, when it looks like they're going to run that play, can you just exist in that spot? Can you just be alive right there where they are with your 464 pounds?
Set up camp.
That is so big.
It's sort of like when people say there are like trillions of stars in the galaxy. Like, we don't really comprehend a number that large. This is a man that weighs almost 200 full pounds more than Myles Garrett. How is that possible? I don't understand how it's physically possible for a human being to be that size.
Athletes that weigh 200 pounds. Hold on. Let's see this. I know there's plenty, but like let's equate this then. The athletes that weigh
250.
200.
I mean,
okay.
He weighs.
No.
Okay.
How much did Garrett weigh, you said?
260, 270.
Okay, so let's just say 200 extra pounds. So that's like if Myles Garrett put Joe Burrow on his back and existed as an NFL player. That's literally what this Desmond Watson is in physics, from a physics standpoint.
Yeah.
I can't even
insane.
comprehend that. Like, how do you even go clothes shopping?
Yeah,
like, what do you even do?
I think he's just naked until he gets an NFL contract, and then he has custom clothes.
You could get custom suits. I can only imagine how much threading that would take. Unreal. I think that's just a wild story. Let's see if he actually gets drafted and which team. I'm dead serious. And if the Tush Push does not get banned, an NFC East team should just be like, dibs, wherever they're at in the draft. Like, dibs, we got him in the NFC East. We call him to whomever. We'll share him. Yeah. We'll have him on We'll have him on a plan where he rotates between all the NFC East teams. We'll trade him.
Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley can squat a combined 1,200 pounds, but what are they going to do when half of their combined squatting ability is in one man on the defensive line?
Yeah, he's just with helmet and pads, like just sitting there. I can only imagine. I mean, we brought up Cam Jurgens. Could you imagine if that was on the other side of you and you're like, I don't even know what to do with that. Like, I don't even know where to go. But that's a wild
I'm sure he's a
story.
normal guy, but when you say you weigh 460 some pounds, I just picture you like drooling, like you just like you know the scene in Harry Potter, the Chamber of Secrets where they walk in and they see the 3-headed dog and it just drools all over him.
That's
like,
a shout
Cam
out,
Jurgens is going to do that. He's going to
killer
look up.
reference, by the way. That's you take the rest of the day off with that Harry Potter reference. Okay, one last thing before we move on to the next one with Desmond Watson, and I don't mean to make light of this, but like 95% chance he has a CPAP, right?
I have never seen a human being over 300 pounds who doesn't have sleep apnea.
Yeah, like
it's sort of like, you remember when Donald Trump first took office and he said, "I've never seen a thin person drink Diet Coke." One of the greatest quotes in American history. It's just like that, though. Like at a certain point, you got to have a CPAP. You got to be pre-diabetic, even if you're an NFL athlete.
Yeah.
Like there's just only so much the human body can take.
Yeah, he's honestly, that's scary territory, right? Like you think of like heart problems and like as amazing as it is, like he's got to sort that shit out because. Yeah, I mean,
you've never seen an 80-year-old 300-pound person, never.
No,
they don't live.
So he needs. If he doesn't have a CPAP, if he's listening, this is a call. Like you should probably go get a sleep study. Don't even do the study. Just say I need a CPAP. Yeah. Obviously, and
you're gonna walk in and they'll have it ready for you on the counter. They'll
we know what you need. Car. We got you 2 in case one broke.
Yeah, and still being able to run under 6.
That's impressive. Honestly, that's insane to me. Like I don't think people can fathom like how fast that is. Because I think we would struggle to run under 6 right now with our old bodies that don't weigh 400 pounds. Yeah, that's moving.
It is moving. Well, we mentioned Myles Garrett, so let's talk a little bit about Myles Garrett. He's in a weird situation right now, with the whole I want to be traded. Oh, wait, you're going to offer me $1 billion? Okay, I'll stick around. So now everyone's asking him, okay, so you're here. You're in it now. What do we do to fix this mess? And in a recent interview, he said any team that's going to go far needs a quarterback, one that's young and willing to learn and willing to be patient with the process. Obviously, he's alluding to the fact that Deshaun Watson was a total dumpster fire, is a total dumpster fire. Even the Browns owner, Jimmy Haslam, recently admitted that the team took, quote, a big swing and a miss with Deshaun Watson, to which every NFL fan said, fucking obviously. We all knew that a long time ago. The Browns have the number 2 pick in the draft. They've been evaluating quarterback prospects, including Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. Obviously, Myles Garrett wants him to get a quarterback. Everybody wants him to get a quarterback. They restructured the deal with Deshaun Watson, so now it's a little bit more feasible, seemingly, to get a quarterback and move on. Obviously, that's just what they need. I mean, I don't know.
This, in the juxtaposition, we were talking about the Titans. Like, this is a team that should roll the dice because you need it. Like, you totally messed up with Watson. You hemorrhaged a lot of picks. You're up here. You have to just take it when you can get it with either Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. Obviously, dealer's choice. We'll see what happens at 1. But this is a team that's ready made to go ahead and like roll the dice. Like go ahead and just see if you can get one because they have a lot of those other pieces that maybe the Titans don't even have. They have some skill position players. They have a really good defense. The line is pretty solid. Could use some upgrades, but this is the team that really, like, if you can roll the dice and hit on a quarterback. And when we say hit, I guess we got to frame that because we're not saying MVP, Super Bowl MVP is going to be the best player you've ever seen. Hit is literally like being top 15 quarterbacks in the NFL. Like, can he flirt with that statistically and lead you? Like, if you get that on this Browns team, you're doing great. You're basically doing what Flacco did, but you're doing it with a much younger player that you can develop. And I think for the Browns, it makes a ton of sense. I know I get why Garrett signed when he wanted to leave. Money talks and bullshit walks. And yeah, the Deshaun thing, that's still a head scratcher. I think it's going to be for quite some time, but hitting on one of these quarterbacks can do wonders for them. I would almost take Shedeur in this because I think Shedeur, he can make plays. I don't think he's the most mobile, but like I think he's got an arm. He knows how to win. He's got that swagger, and I think that's something this team needs. Somebody that's coming in there to play. Now, will Dion let him play in Cleveland? I have no idea.
Well, Dion, there was a quote, actually, I didn't put it on the notes, but I saw a quote that he basically said he'd be happy with any of the possible NFL teams that he lands on. I don't know if someone held him at gunpoint and made him say that, but
read this.
Ultimately, if I'm looking at this draft class, I think Cam Ward is my number 1 overall quarterback.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, I think Shedeur does fit this what is needed in Cleveland a little bit more. He's already used to being sacked 76 times every game. So he knows that's going to happen and he can survive that. And you've seen him perform and excel outside of that hurdle. So if you're the Browns, you're like, wow, we've seen that guy do it. And that's exactly what's going to happen to anybody we bring here. So let's get him.
I think the sneaky upside real quick on Shedeur is that he has already played under a microscope already. And traditionally there isn't one in Boulder, Colorado, but when Deion took the head coach job there, he's being very like outward with what his plans were. Deion was kind of ahead of the curve when we talk about transfers and the portal and like reloading his team, and he took a lot of shit for it. But like Deion knew what he was doing and took a lot of shit. And he was on ESPN primetime and they had game day there and they had all these celebrities and rappers there and doing all this stuff. And largely he showed up and he played well. And I think if you're an NFL team, that's a pretty good proving ground that most quarterbacks don't get to have before they enter the NFL. And I think, the physicals aside, I think from him and Cam Ward, I think if I'm an NFL GM, I'm looking at that, I'm like, you know what he did? Like, he kind of knows what to do. And his dad's Deion, like he knows what this is going to be like. We're not going to have to teach him that on top of everything in the NFL. And I think that's an added benefit that I don't know if many want to talk about or admit, but I think that's like a plus for Shedeur.
Yeah, I think Shedeur, we don't have to spend too long talking about this one guy, but one of the things that always drove me crazy with him is, yes, his time at Colorado was not ideal. They had some stellar games, they had some heartbreakers, and they got beat down a bunch. One of the things that drove me crazy was his, like the way he gave interviews. He didn't hesitate to say our offensive line sucked. Like he didn't hesitate to call his own guys out. And under Deion, it kind of gave you the impression of like a spoiled child. Like it just didn't seem like he was taking a leadership role very seriously. It seems like he was just venting to the media and not considering what his team is going through. In the NFL, obviously you can't do that, but having someone like Stefanski there rather than your dad, I think could make a big impact in that regard. And as we've already talked about, there's a lot to look up for Shedeur. Yep. A lot of good things about his game. So, I would probably put money that that's who they're going to pick.
Yeah, I think he'd be good in Cleveland. Happy to see how he plays out there.
Yeah. All right. Last quarterback we got to touch on before we switch over to our new segment, which is going to be shorter now without Slapdog because the storm might have killed him.
I think a twister took him was the last word I got.
Could be. Jets head coach Aaron Glenn says, quote, Justin Fields is ready to break out as a top-notch quarterback. Top-notch are the words that he used.
Top-notch.
When in an episode, I don't think you were here, it was me and Slapdog, I said maybe you were here. There was something about Justin Fields going to the Jets that I feel optimistic about, and I don't have any reasons why. I feel like Yeah, so I don't know why that's the case, but I do feel that Justin Fields is going to have an opportunity to actually take a step forward. I mean, going from the Bears and then going from barely playing at all with the Steelers, this roster is the most talented roster he's played with. He's coming in with basically no expectations because his career's kind of tanked, and he's coming in after Aaron Rodgers, who absolutely tanked. So I think Jets fans are like, whatever happens, happens. And Justin Fields like, I'm just going to show up and play ball with the best group of guys that I've ever taken an NFL field with. Something about it just feels like it's kind of going to work out. Now, I don't think they're going to win Super Bowls anytime soon, but I think we might start talking about Justin Fields in a new light after the next season or two.
I really hope so. I love Justin Fields. I think coming out of Ohio State, I think he was widely touted and rightly so. I think he had all the tools. You saw him do everything. You could see him run. You could see him throw. He could make difficult throws. He had great wide receivers at Ohio State, not taking anything away from what he did there. But I think he definitely has everything you need. I don't think he's just been in the right situations. I think that's been a struggle for him, is having to deal with situations that are less than ideal for him. Obviously, we know what Chicago was. Maybe they're changing, but we know what Chicago was. Pittsburgh, obviously, I think he played really well there. I think he served as a great quarterback for what that team needed, and I think he could do so with the Jets. The one piece of advice I would give when you have a quarterback like Justin Fields, or I'd like to see more, I would like to see teams do more. And this is another conversation we can have, because I don't know why they don't do it. You get to the end of the half and they start kind of going no huddle or playing with pace. You get up to the line, you make a play, you make a read, you move, you go, you keep going. And I think Justin Fields is very much that quarterback, especially looking at how they played at times at Ohio State, where I think he needs to play with pace. He strikes me as a quarterback that needs that rhythm, like that constant rhythm. And I would love to see him and more teams that have quarterbacks like Justin Fields. I think like Jaden Daniels could benefit from it too. Like go to more up tempo offense, like to go a little bit more no huddle, like catch teams off guards. You have an athlete back there, like start going. Cause that's the hardest thing when you have an athlete at quarterback. You have somebody that can move around and make plays. When you play with tempo, it keeps the defense off guard and they're able to make better plays and they're able to make quicker reads and they can do things, they get just more in a rhythm. And I think that's what Justin Fields needs. And I think he very obviously wasn't getting that in Chicago and he wasn't getting that with the Steelers, but I think that's something that he could benefit from. And I would love to see if the Jets can kind of embrace that mentality of like, hey, you know what? We're not going to win like everybody else. So let's like not play like everybody else. So let's just play with a little tempo. And that's just like something I was noodling around when I was thinking about.
Well,
that's the Jets.
That's a lesson that how many college teams have learned that lesson? I mean, we see college teams employ that exact strategy. And part of it is just you want to avoid the paralysis by analysis thing. You load your quarterback's head with too much shit, and then they have to make so many decisions so quickly that they just shut down. And when you have an athlete at the quarterback position that affords you the opportunity to maybe make everything a little bit simpler because you never know what kind of play he can break at any moment and design an offense around that.
I agree. 100%. 100%.
All right. Are you ready?
The leather burn.
The leather burns, which I guess let me ask this. We've never done this before. You want me to go first or you want to go first in terms of providing something that we think there needs to be some shit talking on something? And it's going to be the case forever. So that's why this is a great segment because it'll be constant. We can always shit talk something. Do you want to shit talk first or do you want me to shit talk first?
I can go first because I like yours. I want to hear yours. I see your notes here and I think listeners will be pretty excited to hear your roast, your leather burn. My roast is actually related to not me, but to LSU's offensive lineman, Will Campbell. And I don't know if you heard this story. But Will Campbell is currently getting roasted because he is seen as having short arms. He's getting a lot of shit post the NFL Combine saying his arm length actually measures longer. He's going back and forth with his agent. He had to come out and actually have a press conference talking about, and he started venting why all of a sudden is my arm length an issue. He's 6'6". I think I Googled it. He has like about average arm length. So I'm kind of confused on why this is considered short, but it was considered shorter for a tackle. So he's just getting absolutely roasted about having T-Rex arms. And to me, that's like the funniest thing ever. Like you're about to be a professional athlete and you are just getting absolutely raked because people are saying you have little short T-Rex arms. There's literally nothing you can do about it because it's immeasurable. It's very much Kenny Pickett when they said he had tiny little baby hands. So now you have this tackle that's like possibly he's very realistically losing money based on his draft projections because he has short arms. And so I feel for him, but that's like, what a roast, man. Just like, that's like being a short guy and there's like nothing you can do about it. Like you're just short. Like he has little T-Rex arms. So for better or worse, wherever he gets drafted, that's just going to be his thing. He's just going to be known as having little T-Rex arms. And that sucks.
Well, what's funny is that Jason Kelsey has suffered similar criticism. They're like, well, your arms are too short. How are you going to, you're going up against 6'6" defensive linemen. How are you going to keep him out of the pocket? And he figured it out. It's not that big of a deal. This is one of those things that I feel like if the internet didn't exist, that these controversies also wouldn't exist. I feel like there's one scout who says, wow, your arms are kind of short for your 6'6" frame. And then everyone thinks it's hilarious. So it just gets shared around by a billion people on social media. And now all of a sudden you're dropping 10 spots in the draft.
The best part is he's not even fighting it. He's just saying, look at my tape. Look how good I play. It's like, white flag. I know I got short arms, but I'm a good player. I mean, he really is. That just sucks when you just get roasted like that on the internet. So my roast for this week is offensive tackle Will Campbell for having T-Rex arms.
Classic. All right. Mine is a little bit different. If you're a listener to this podcast it wasn't that long ago that we talked about this. I have dedicated my life after the football season to chess. I've been playing a lot of chess and I've been playing chess for years, but now I'm playing over-the-board tournaments. I'm getting officially USCF, which is U.S. Chess Federation, rated. It's like a real thing in my life right now. And when I first started... No, it's not a cry for help. I'm enjoying it greatly. Okay. It's been a lot of fun. When I first started this, I I said on this podcast, I had no idea what this was going to be like. If I was going to walk in and just get smoked over and over again and not even be close, or if maybe I'm a little bit better at chess than I thought I was. And it turns out the second thing is kind of more true. I've been competing with people who I assumed would be way, way, way better than me. I'm still sitting at about 50-50 on wins and losses. So it's not like I'm blowing anybody out of the water. But when I first got into this, I specifically told you guys that there was going to be a point when I played like an 8-year-old child and I just get demolished, because that happens in chess. But when you start chess at a very young age, you pick up on concepts and patterns very, very quickly. And a lot of these young players, people like Magnus Carlsen, the best chess player of all time, was a grandmaster when he was like 12. So like that happens all the time. It finally happened to me. I played this 8-year-old Asian girl. She said like 3 words to me the whole time.
Was this in person?
It was in person. It was at a tournament.
Oh yeah, at the Knights of Columbus.
It was not at the Knights of Columbus.
Oh.
But she came in and sat down, and I knew I was in trouble right away, because she sat down. She showed up, first of all, 5 minutes late, which if you are a chess player, you know anything about chess, that's a big flex, because your clock ticks down, so you're losing time. She shows up late. She sits down. She shakes my hand. Doesn't say a freaking word to me. And then she proceeded to play a game of chess at a level that I have never seen anyone play in my time playing over the board chess so far. For anyone who knows chess, I reviewed the game afterward, and she finished with over a 95% accuracy score and over a 2500 rating, which is a master level game of chess. And I got fucking smoked, and I just can't. I don't know. I knew it was going to happen, so it didn't like destroy me or anything. And I'm glad she played a really good game, because I didn't just totally blow it. But it made me realize that there is a very real ceiling in terms of how far I can take this hobby.
Hey, you know what? Well, shout out to you for standing in there and taking that. I imagine the things that were racing through your head as she was just like totally just kicking your ass.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a chance she showed up late because she looked through the window and saw you and she's like, I'm going to finish this burger. I'm just going to hang out here for a second. Like, I need the fresh air before I go in and kick this guy's ass. Like,
honestly, I was kind of worried that when I was waiting for her to show up, I was kind of worried that she did peek in and she saw this like middle-aged man with a mustache, and she's like, "Oh, this feels like a stranger danger." Like,
true. She
situation.
probably checked like the registry, like the sex offender registry, just to be like, nope, this doesn't look like any of them. let's go. All
right, we're good. It's just another guy with a mustache. He's not creepy.
Fine. That's insane. I don't know how I would react to that. Like I am way too dumb to play chess, so that you'll never catch me there. Maybe checkers.
You can play chess.
Maybe checkers. Like, is there over the board checkers tournaments I could get into?
Probably. I imagine that the people who play in those things are 100 years old minimum.
Oh, that's my speed right there. Chess. That would be. So where do you go from here? Do you review the tape of this, of where you just got demolished by this 12-year-old, or do you just move on? Do you burn the tape? Do you even acknowledge this? Like, who do you? Does your wife know this happened?
Mm-hmm. I told her immediately. She laughed at me. But people don't understand. People don't understand how good kids are that play chess for their whole lives.
It's just funny to think you played a game against a 12-year-old.
No, honestly, the worst part about it, because I knew this was going to happen, the worst part about it is when I reviewed this game, I was studying this game, looking at where I could have improved, and I learned a lot. This little 8-year-old girl taught me so much about the particular opening that she used is an opening that I'm not real familiar with. I learned a ton about how to play against it, and all these lessons that I'll take into every game. I'm like, yeah, I remember when that 8-year-old girl just paddle whipped me to death with this opening, and now it's never going to happen again. So I took a lot out of it, and that almost makes it a little worse. I think she just taught me so much.
I think the takeaway here is when you eventually win a tournament, you got to figure out a non-creepy way to basically say all my success is due to an 8-year-old girl.
I'll send her a letter or something. By that point, she's going to be 40 by the time I get to the point where I can win tournaments, so it won't be as creepy.
True. Won't be as creepy, but you might want to start working that out now, because if you do happen to win, you're going to have to credit her and give her all the success or all the flowers.
Yeah. All right. Well, Slapdog is gone. He's dead. So hopefully you like this podcast without him. No, just kidding. He'll be back next week probably.
Actually, we don't know.
Thank you very Well, that's a good point. That's a good point. But thank you very much for sticking with us, hearing about chess, hearing about the NFL. And we don't have anything to promote anymore because March Gladness is over. So I guess we're just done. I guess it's just over.
Did we just end it?
It's just over now. I think so. I think we just end it.
Do you want me to take the last two pieces?
Yeah,
Okay.
take it.
Okay. Are you going to start do you start it? Or are we ending with, because we have a signature end, but Slaps isn't here, so now we're kind of lost.
Okay, I got this.
Okay,
First of
okay.
all, make sure you follow us on social media. Go over on X is where our biggest following is. Join the community there. We got like 40,000 people who care what we have to say for some reason. And then also make sure you're subscribing in all your podcast apps, leaving us ratings, reviews, comments, all that good stuff. And with all that said, with nothing else to promote, we
Are out.
Ooh.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you tune into our new releases every week on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and check out leatherbrains.com for all of your fantasy football needs. And remember, Brainiacs, a championship should be more than a fantasy.